Right, welcome back to Addicted to Recovery, the brand new podcast bringing you the truth about addiction. I'm joined, as ever, by my dear friend, co-host, and fellow recovering addict, Max Thomas. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Here we go again.
Here we go again. Oh, mate, we've got a good one for you today.
Yeah.
Ain't we?
Mm-hmm.
Look, this guy is someone I've always looked up to. As soon as I come in recovery, he's always had his flip-flops on. He's always had his shorts on, no matter what the time of the year is. And this guy knows his stuff. I always say, if you want to know about recovery, talk to Darren.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, mate.
Pressure on.
No, look, it's true though, isn't it, Max?
Yeah,
The guy knows his
I
stuff.
said to my brother tonight, he said, who you got coming on? I went, Darren. He went, what, flip-flop, Darren? I went,
Just to put in context, no matter what time of the year, he's always got his shorts on, he's always got his flip-flops on, and a suntan.
I've got to change that up. I can't have that name.
Flip-flop Darren, brilliant. Oh, well, I'm not going to call you flip-flop Darren, but yeah, it's great to have you in here, mate. Yeah, look, like I've already said, you're one of them constants in my recovery. Anytime I go to meetings, you've always been there. And when you share, you just seem to have this wealth of knowledge and understanding about this stuff. And I've always related to you. We were talking a little bit before, we used in different ways, but you'll explain like a thinking pattern or a feeling in a way. And I'm like, oh, that's me. You know what I mean? Even though we use different from different generations, I identify with you so much. And that's what this stuff's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How do you feel about your experiences with Darren, mate, in the rooms?
well, I first met Darren, Honeypot Lane, Basildon, and he used to sneak in. It seemed like he used to sneak in at the back of the meeting and then disappear before the meeting ended, was my first experience
Really?
with him. But every time he spoke, I was like, and now I try and get to the meetings that you're going to because I know what's going to come out your mouth and you've always been quite honest about where you are. I remember when you were going through some bits personally and you were crying in the meetings and I was like it allowed me to get vulnerable, I suppose, and you were one of the first guys that I saw cry in the meetings, I suppose, and just own their stuff. And then I saw during that period recovery holding you, Darren, as well. It was one of those moments where I was like, fuck me. We did we've just recently done one on hope and faith and how the program holds us, and yeah, that was one of the big moments I remember for my recovery and going to meetings. And I see you got through that period. So I think we'll better start off with a bit of a story. How Darren got into recovery.
Yeah, mate. Give us a bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to come here. You know
No
what I mean? I'm a
problem.
bit nervous, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Just relax, mate. We're all friends here.
Yeah, just that. It's that nervousness of revealing myself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If you want me to talk about, something else,
Yeah.
that's right. Talk all day long. It's
Football,
like,
whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to reveal myself now.
Yeah.
Like Max just said there about, going to meetings and getting vulnerable and stuff like that. And it was never like that. I think what I've learned in recovery, it's not just about being honest. It's about, I'm going to be real. Right? I'm going to be real. And if the shit's hitting the fan, I'm going to be real. If it's joyous and wonderful, I'm going to be real. So it's no matter what. And if I've got feelings, I'm sick and tired in my life of like hiding behind a facade, pretending to be a certain way. You know what I mean? It's like, well, 13 and a half years clean and recovery. Everything's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wrong answer. You know what I mean? I live a day at a time with this illness, and there's as much of a nightmare as it is, right? It's equal to a joy that it is. You know what I mean? It's like, and I will share that. I remember going to my sponsor, I sort of flit about, but I remember going to a sponsor, I visited, I might talk about it, I don't know, but I visited South Africa a few times. I know I've got friends over there at treatment centres and stuff like that. I sponsor a guy that runs a treatment centre. These are all the joys. I don't believe it's me doing this, but apparently it is,
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my sponsor, going, look, they're all seeing me as a role model. And they're all in early recovery. They're all in, and they're sort of looking up to me. But I've got this stuff going on and I can't share it in the meetings. And he said, you need to share it in the meetings.
Yeah.
He said, because whether they get it now, if they stick around, they will get it. Because it happens to everyone. So I'm a real believer.
That's a really interesting take, that, ain't it?
Yeah, it's one of the big things, though, that I was suggested coming into recovery. Just be honest. If you're having a good day, share. If you're having a bad day, share. I did some work with a sponsor recently, and he just wasn't... it wasn't being honest. Like, if I would ask him, how are you today? His natural response would be, yeah, I'm good. Do you know what I mean? Even though he is in serious pain internally. And I think I was one of the lucky ones where I've always been pretty fucking honest coming into the rooms, but I've only done that, we shared earlier, because I got involved with my 90 meetings in 90 days and I was able to see guys come in and share their vulnerability. It just enabled me to be vulnerable. And there's so much power in that honesty. And it's what we're trying to say, it takes the power out of it. Do you know what I mean? If you're holding on to something, that's why I try and say to my sponsees, try and share if you can at every meeting you go to, because I find that if I don't, I'm sitting in the car on the way home thinking, fuck, I wish I'd got that out. And so I'm a true believer of that.
Yeah, well, look, I've been in the same position as you, right? Obviously, I'm fucking nowhere near the amount of clean time, but there's been times where people are looking up to me in meetings. I've been in meetings where I'm the cleanest there, and people are looking up to me. I've got sponsees, I'm taking people through the work, and I will share what I think people want to hear, right? Dishonesty is massive for me. It was the thing they picked out when I was in treatment that I needed to work on. Is something that crops up all the time. It's the first question on my step 10 every night. Was I dishonest today?
Yeah.
Because I catch myself in it all the time. And sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. So it's really interesting that you say that. Share it. Get into the meeting, share that stuff. Get real, like you said at the beginning. Because
dishonesty can be, are you okay, Chris? Yeah, I'm fine. And actually...
omission.
Yeah.
Rather than actually saying a lie.
Exactly, mate.
Yeah, and the thing is with that, when you say dishonest, I don't sort of think, right, I'm going to be dishonest.
No.
I think I'm trying to do the right thing here. I don't want to upset no one. I want to try and help
there you
people.
go.
So
Bit of people pleasing.
Thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I as well, for me, it's like, if someone sort of shares something, I guess you can pick up on authenticness.
Yeah.
It's a connection.
Yeah.
And you can hear that. It don't have to be in the rooms, you can hear that with other people and everything. And I think that's what the power is in NA. The more authentic we can be. So if doesn't matter where you are at with it, whether you're having a nightmare or it's a fantastic few days you're having, do you know what I mean? Being authentic is what other people tune into.
Yeah. Of course.
And I've had people come up to me. I always, tell a story about 3 years clean, and I sort of done what every addict does at 3 years clean, sort of like back off a little bit.
That's where I am.
I'm 3 years now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got sponsees. I've been through the steps. You know what I mean? I'm not stopping because I'm smart. You know what I mean? I'm just going to back off gently, and it didn't end well. I didn't pick up. It didn't end well. It first started off with a sponsee saying to me, I got a sponsee and he gone, I swear a lot anyway. I'm really pleased I heard your podcast. You swear. I thought, yes, I mean, yeah. But this sponsee went, are you all right? I went, why? He went, you're really swearing a lot. I thought, fucking cheek. Who do you think he is? You know what I mean? But it put up a red flag. And what I realised I was doing at that point, it was another situation. I went to a meeting and I was going one meeting a week. Yeah. And I done a 10-minute share, about me. And an old timer come up to me and he said, have you forgot about the newcomer? Yeah. And he walked away. I thought, cheek. Yeah. You know what I mean? But these two people said the right things to me, and that was at 3 years clean. I went to my sponsor and I said to him, look, what's going on? And he said, well, back to basics, do what you need to do. So, I thought, right, okay, I've done another 1990 at 3 years clean. And I'll never forget it was the Basildon meeting as it happened. So I went in the Basildon meeting and I'm just throwing fucks in there. I don't know if I'm sharing a message of hope. It's not hope. Yeah. I'm sharing the mess. I'm sharing where I'm at. Yeah. You know what I mean? I hate this. I can't do that. I feel this. I feel that. I feel this. Like I don't know what I shared, but it won't. After the meeting, a guy come up to me and he went, I love what you shared, but you sponsor me. Yeah. I remember thinking to myself, if you want me to sponsor you, we're both fucked. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
This geezer must be
But he was
nuts.
attracted to the honesty, right?
That was it. What I realised in that moment, I didn't go out to do that. I was being real. Yeah. And because of where he was, he identified with that. It was like what you were saying at the beginning, Chris. I was verbalising how he was feeling. I didn't know that. He was going, that's it. And once you share that stuff, because a lot of the stuff I share that stuff, it's not true. It's just a bit of a knee-jerk feeling or reaction that I've got going on in that moment, you know what I mean? And, like you said, Max, get in a meeting, share it, and then I can move it out of the way to start getting to the truth.
Exactly.
So it's important, I think, to share.
Yeah, well, look, we spoke about this, right? And I mentioned it a couple of times on previous episodes. All we're trying to do is get out of the way, right? The process of subtraction. We ain't adding anything in this fellowship and with the steps and the work we're doing. we're just trying to get out of the way. And funny you mentioned that stuff about being about 3 years clean. So I'm like 3 years, 3 months, right? And my meeting attendance is down a little bit. I'm getting a little bit angry and petty indoors. I'm still doing loads of service work because I've got loads of sponsees, and I'm plugged into the program. I am, and I'm doing this stuff. I'm doing other stuff. I'm always talking about recovery, but back to basics, I reckon I've got some growth. And it's funny you mentioned that. Is that a common thing around this amount of clean time? Because you just explained what's going on for me a little bit.
Since I've sort of, when I share that experience, there's always someone that sort of like nods or go. I shared in a convention once, and a girl was on stage in front of like loads of people. This girl come running up afterwards, crying. I thought, oh my God, what have I said?
Yeah,
she threw her arms around me. She said, "You've just saved me from a relapse. You've just explained exactly where I am and what I need to do."
Is it like a little 3-year itch?
I'm not sure if it's a thing, but it's
common.
my experience.
Yeah.
If you're touching on it, this girl.
But I think when we come in, we're so raw and we've got so much to share about. I'm talking about my story anyway. And you're crying and you're getting upset and you're just offloading on the meeting, and then you build up some clean time and life gets a bit better. And I think maybe you forget to share about. It might seem small to you, but really, I talk about that backpack and it getting heavier and heavier and heavier when I was in active addiction, and eventually I fell over. But in normal life, now we're clean, the backpack still gets filled up. It still needs emptying. And I've got into a rhythm now of every time I go to, I still do 2-3 meetings a week, and I share where I'm at. If I'm having a bad day and I've had a row with the missus or the kids are too noisy, I share those things. They might be small things, but over time they build up, and the pressure cooker's got to go off at some point. Do you know what I mean? It's that's my experience around it.
Yeah. So when did you start using?
So when I think I always sort of like got one story at about 12 years old. That was when I can remember, like, because in if you whatever fellowship you go to, they talk about what makes the addict, what makes the alcoholic.
Yeah, we spoke about it a lot.
And it's that thing that I love it because there's many different things, but it says in there, it's your reaction to the drugs, it's your reactions to the alcohol. Because I had lots of mates that used drugs, and they just decided to stop. And what I see now is we were having a different reaction. So going back, the situation I can remember that runs true to that sort of thing is we was at a school disco, and as a kid, I suppose I was really quite sort of tuned in, quite sort of mature for my years, which at the time looked like a real bonus, but it wasn't, right? And but really sort of like anxious as well, but sort of covered that up.
I can relate.
And a mate of mine nicked a bottle of scotch for this school disco. And so there's 3 of us, and we went back to his before the school disco, and we're drinking this bottle of scotch. And one mate went like, "I don't like that. No, I ain't having none of it."
No.
That was it. So, I was just drinking it. The other mate had some, and when we got back to school, they had to call an ambulance for him, and he had his stomach pumped, right? So there's the 3 people, right, all drinking the same scotch. We're all having a completely different reaction.
Yeah.
Now, the mad thing about this, and I didn't, I sort of like dined out on this for a little while because I thought it was some sort of like addict superpower, you know what I mean? I didn't realise till coming in recovery is when I went to school, the teacher said to me, she said, "Well, Darren, you've obviously not drunk as much as them because you're not in the state they was in."
Yeah.
And I knew for a while that I'd drunk loads more.
Yeah.
So what had happened, their reaction, having your stomach pumped is the correct reaction to have to alcohol.
For a 12-year-old who's drunk
Putting
and a glass of
poison
scotch.
in your body,
Yeah.
that's what's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And like for me, I can sort of remember it when them teachers saying that, They got my mum to come pick me up because we were all drunk and all that. My mum turned up at school and went, "What, they wasted my time for?" I was together. I'd like, so instead of this
You drove home.
Heavyweight from the
this
word go.
anxious sort of person, I was like, "Oh, sweet, smatter.
Yeah.
I can trick my mum, trick the teachers."
Yeah.
And really, when I look back, like I say, I thought, right, I've grabbed a superpower there. You know what I mean? And little did I know that was going to go on, for a lot of years. So that was 12. when I come in, I didn't sort of always think about that story, but when I come into recovery and started going through step works and I looked at that, that was my first example of people have different reactions to substance.
Yeah, well, you start looking at it from a different angle. What's that guy, Chuck Chamberlain, a new pair of glasses?
Yeah, that's it.
You start seeing things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff from my childhood and my past that I'm looking back on now from a different point of view, seeing it for what it really was. Because at the time, all it was a feeling or a situation. And you know the ones I remember the most? Embarrassment. If I was embarrassed, it was like burned into my memory.
Yeah.
And I used to play it over and over and over again. And I used a lot to quiet that. So there'd be an example of a situation where I'd like embarrass myself in front of a girl or in front of a group of people.
Yeah.
And like 5, 10, 15 years later, I'll be like doing a bit of work and it's like, bang, have that. Remember that one? And I'm like, oh, like dying inside. I'm like, give me something to quiet this up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was always embarrassment was the one that used to get me.
So the using progressed?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about that, if you think about that kid and them two, you know, having that reaction, I'm having that reaction. It was almost like I'd say, you know, looking back, it's a bit of hindsight. I felt whole. It was like I come together. It was like this was right. They was all telling me, well, you're not as bad as these. So it was almost like I'd found that comfort.
Missing piece.
Yeah, the comfort blanket. I'd found it at that point. You know, my childhood was, you know, I had a mum and dad that did the best they could.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't addicts, they weren't alcoholics. It was like a normal sort of like family upbringing.
Same.
My old man, you know, he was very tough, very, very hard. I mean, I was brought up in the 70s, right? If you took my childhood from the 70s to today, they called it child abuse.
Yeah.
Days, you know what I mean?
Same though. Same from the 90s.
It's as simple as that, you know. So it was quite hard, you know. And so there was a lot of fear. You know, and I think, am I fearful and anxious? You know, I believe that's part of the illness. But, you know, the environment I lived in was, it was, you know, it was hard. I got threatened with my dad.
Whereabouts was this? Where'd you grow up?
Originally, I was born in Hackney, but we moved out to Hornchurch.
Okay.
Yeah. So
very similar to me. It's like Hackney, Romford.
Yeah.
Similar sort of vibe.
A lot of love?
It's a real hard one, that, because I'd probably say, yes, there was, but I just weren't able to receive it, you know. And I think, you know, my mum was quite codependent and insecure. My dad was quite hard as nails, right? So you're not going to get no love and nurture from your old man. You're going to get strict discipline. Do as you're fucking told, you know what I mean? What you crying for and all that. And then my mum, she even said something to me years ago. She said, I stopped hugging you when you was younger, because she said I couldn't handle the rejection.
Really?
Yeah, you know, and that sort of sat with me uncomfortable for a lot of years. I couldn't understand it until I got in recovery and started doing a bit of work. And I could see she had her own stuff going on. And I could see how that she would feel with this boy who's a bit off the wall and she wants to give him love, but he's just like...
He won't take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
But look, like you already said, they were doing the best they could.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, absolutely. And I always sort of say, you know, I've been in lots of therapy, you know, my old man got hit with a belt buckle. Right, and you know that thing I've always said, well, as long as I'm not like my old man, right? And I've never asked him this, but I've got visions of my old man saying, I'm not going to be like my old man. And what I can say is he weren't, because my old man never hit me with a belt buckle. He hit me with his fists, but he won't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mate, it's the same.
Yeah.
You know,
you think you've got it hard. My dad used to do this.
That's it.
And now it's like, I'm soft as shit on my boy because I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? That's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely relate. So yeah, look, you knew something weren't quite right. You put that substance in you. Like you said, it gave you that safety blanket, made you feel whole. How did it progress into your school years and growing up?
Well, it was just sort of part of life, you know. I always think this as well, because it's quite mad. You know, my mates at school, they're all smoking, right? And I
cigarettes.
Yeah. I didn't smoke at school. I thought that was all wrong uns, mate. You know what I mean? What are you smoking cigarettes for?
Yeah.
You know, so it's probably a lot of this story, and I've been thinking about it today, is like, I've lived a whole life of being in these certain positions in my life, and it ain't really me. You know, I'll tell you some stories about it being here, doing this and doing that, and you think, well, this ain't me. You know, I should be there. You know, so it weren't like I just went flat out at everything, you know what I mean? It was almost like, here's that maturity thing. I thought I was quite smart at a very young age, and I probably was. I remember, you know, friends' parents saying, God, you're quite mature. And I think somewhere, this will be my style, I think somewhere I took that on board, and I just switched the growing switch off. I thought, well, I'm mature, switch it off.
I'm already there.
Yeah.
Don't need that anymore.
You know? So I was like, you know, being with women, losing my virginity early age, and sort of like, you know, womanizing at 12, do you know what I mean? Thinking, I've arrived, do you know what I mean? Getting pissed, holding it together. I'm thinking, this is it, mate, I'm done.
Cracked it.
You know, but by 17, you know, I was going to the doctors, and I was sort of saying to the doctor, Doc, I said, I keep drinking, I don't remember anything.
Right.
And he said to me, he said, you're a blackout drunk.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what I've done with that information. It ain't like, oh, this is serious, I'm a blackout drunk. I just come out, I went, I don't know, probably went to lads. Yeah, I found out, lads, what keeps happening, I'm a blackout
drunk.
I went, oh, crack on, have a beer.
Yeah. I know what I did. I started taking cocaine.
Well, that, for alcohol.
That helps for blackout drinkers.
Yeah.
Keeps you out of blackout.
I was saying to you earlier, like I've never had a couple of glasses of wine on the sofa with my missus ever, but I can't even remember drinking just to enjoy a few beers. I can't ever remember doing it. I used to drink to get out of my head. That was it. From an early age, that was I could never just enjoy a beer. It was either no beer or loads of beer. And then when I found Charlie, I realised that I could just keep it going.
Yeah, it allows you to drink a lot more, doesn't it?
It does. It's that's the danger around it. But you mix alcohol and cocaine, and then you are asking for trouble.
Yeah, that was my magic formula when I was 18, 19, and beyond.
But I can relate to the blackout drunk. It was just, that was a massive part of my journey now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as the using was progressing now, it was, you know, it was fun. You know, we was doing what we was doing. You know, I was with a group of lads. I was thinking of a story. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Bug Jam. Right, with the Beatles. Well, we was banging, I still am banging to the Beatles back then. You know, there was a group of us all decided to go. This was like, I don't know, late 80s, right? And my mate said, right, okay, we'll take decks, we'll take a generator, right? And this is before the, you know, sort of warehouse raves were kicking off, but it was in that sort of scene where it weren't, you know, still getting away with it. You know, so we loaded up like a couple of transit vans. My mate had a set of traffic lights that had been, someone nicked them and put a Santa light in them, right? So we set up, and that year, so many people turned up at like Santa Pod. They hired the field next door. So we was the first on this field. So we sort of set up like the decks. There was a few of us there, and we parked our cars in a little circle. We had this big Luton with these traffic lights out the back, and we were all having a puff and everything else. And started playing a bit of music, right? So I looked out, and a couple of people were walking over, and we're sitting in the back of the van having a puff and what have you. And next thing I looked at, there's about 500 people. My mate's on the decks, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds so good.
And then back then, right, I'll never forget, I won't mention his name, he's sitting there going, have you ever had a bit of this? I was like, well, it didn't really matter what it was, but he pulled out a bit of sniff. Mate, I don't know, I'm 17 or something, right? We've put these decks here. We're doing what was at the time, right? There's 500 people dancing out there. It's kicking off. My mate's on the decks DJing and all that. It's like you're hitting this next level. And then someone says, try your first line.
Try that. Yeah.
I'm like, well,
best day of your life.
There's people out there, if they're listening to this, they will go, I remember you there, Dal. I was like, I'd arrived. It was like, I tried to talk to about 10 groups of people at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it was just wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, real good. There was a write-up. I've always tried to get a magazine. There's a write-up in the VW, one of the VW magazines from that, you know, and it said, after the day's racing at Santa Pod, what can only be described as an acid house party started up, you know. That was us just having...
Yeah, but free. No ticket entrance, no toilet, no bar, just like vibe.
Yeah.
And this is it, right? You've got that now in the back of your head. Like, that can happen. So let's try and get it again. You know what I mean?
Mate,
and fucking did I try and get it again? You know what I mean? Not a situation, not similar to that, but I felt what you felt. Like you said, I'd arrived, and I'm like, this is the bollocks. Again, please, again.
Cocaine and alcohol for me though, Chrissy, it just took away that anxiety. That was
me too.
I remember scoring for the first time. I was quite a late bloomer, but I remember scoring for the first time. Me and my mate met this dodgy geezer in a transit van and did the deal, whatever, and then we were worried.
I bet you were smooth.
No, it was fucking, God, it's awful.
Yeah.
One of those cringe moments actually that you were talking about. But and then we were nervous to take it. It was like it was one of them where you hear stories about cocaine, and we were just a bit scared around it. But then, as soon as we had it, it was like, wow. I just never experienced anything like that. Alcohol did it to a certain degree, but it was like I had arrived.
Magic formula.
Yeah, like I could relate to what you said about talking to 10 groups, and I was just bouncing around this pub, everyone's best mate, and I was like, let's go.
I bet it was good in the 80s as well, right?
Absolutely. You know, I've been to a few of the, you know, we used to listen to Centrefolds, jump in the motor, follow people up to God knows where, you know, and going to these raves and stuff, and just buying pills off of strangers, and you know, and just eating
big
them.
lumps of MDMA back in the day, weren't they? It weren't like no rat poison.
My favourite thing back then, I mentioned drug glorifying, but was like the white doves of the 80s, and there was another level, mate. It was just, we talked about a spiritual awakening in recovery. I thought I'd had a spiritual awakening. I think sometimes when I look back at that, I'd resigned that this would be the rest of my life. I'm happy to do this.
Yeah.
Because I got into like the pills and sort of stuff like that, and it was all party, you know, and so many mad stories have been, like I say, I've been thinking about it. You know, my mates had a double-decker bus, and they were just like, we were just off our nuts, sort of, you know, sniffing it up.
What's this, late teens, early 20s?
Yeah, early 90s, so that sort of time. And, you know, and they had a band, so they said, like, right, what we'll do, we're going to try and get a record deal. Will you come with us? So it's like, yeah, all right. So we're driving around London, and on the top of this bus, it cut the roof off, it had sound system. They were playing live outside musical like studios.
Sign Us.
Yeah,
oh, mate, it's fucking so good.
Driving round. And so, like, you know, I was involved with these sort of like people having these cracks. So it was all good, and all the drugs come with it. We took that double-decker bus one night. I don't know if you've seen on Delby ethnic tours. Right, my mate said, let's take the bus up west, charge tourists to get on the bus, right, and we'll drive them around West End. So we've gone up there, blagged it. We're all sniffed off. We've got like the Motorola radios, just jackets with a name on. I'm totally off my nut, right? Getting tourists on, all paying whatever they're paying, get on the bus. And it was an old bus. We come around Piccadilly Circus, right? And if you drive a bus, there are air gears and air brakes. So if you're in traffic, right, the air runs out and it won't go anywhere. We've got the sounds playing full bore, and it was a big system. So it's full playing, right? My mate's come over the radio, he's gone, Dal, the bus is stuck. We're right in Piccadilly Circus, right? He's going, what are we going to do? I've looked over the top of the bus, I went, I don't fucking know, and I don't care. Do you know?
On the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, because we're all looking official, you know. So, and this, you know, we was on another planet, and back then, you know, I knew people that had phone shops. It was like fraud. He'd say to me, right, set up another phone shop. I'd go in there, do a bit of work. Right. You know, it was like, and everything come with drugs. And then it was like pills and uppers and, you know, sort of like the sniff and stuff. So it was a real good crack. You know, he had a phone shop, and he knew some naughty people, and he said, I've got an idea. We're going to do an all-night drinker in the back of the phone shop. Right? So I was like, yeah, all right. So I like a bit of a builder, and he go, right, do this, block this window, paint this, do this. So it's like we set all this drinker up, and we're all sniffing, we're all on another planet, thinking this is the best idea everyone's ever had.
Yeah, of course,
You know what I mean? So we've got this in the back of the phone shop. So gets a knock on the door, and people start turning up. So you're sitting there, right? You're serving like drinks out and all that, right? And not like these are one of the moments I had when I thought, what the fuck am I doing? This ain't my life. Who am I, right? So they're not bringing little wraps, I'm doing little wraps. They're bringing bags and just go, hey, go on, help yourself, boy. You know, all that sort of stuff. So you're sitting there listening to these guys, and I'll never forget this guy. He was sitting there. It was about, you know, this is back in the sort of 80s, early 90s, the Ep8 period and all that sort of time there, you know, the Essex boys and that sort of stuff. So he's sitting there, and this guy's talking, and he's telling a story about having this contract hit on this geezer, and he's got to shoot him, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, this is not my level of life.
No.
But I'm trying to front it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
totally sniffed off me brains, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you belong.
Yeah, bro, you know, and he's telling his story about plotting up in the bushes, waiting for this geezer to come out of this restaurant, and he was going to shoot him, and he said he didn't come out, he was sitting there for ages, and he's telling his fucking story. And it was like, the reason I tell that story is, like I say, it was like, who was I? Because that ain't me. That ain't my life, you know?
I've been in so many situations exactly like that. And I'm like, I don't want to be here, but I'm here. Why am I here? Front it. You know what I mean? And like you said, put that mask on and just oh yeah, now I'm fucking gangster Chris. You know what I mean? And if I'm there for too long, I'm going to get found out because I'm not a gangster. You know what I mean?
Well, I was sort of surrounded by people who had really harebrained schemes and they'd follow them up. Right. And I was always the man. They'd say to me, Dale, can you do this? Yeah, it's done, mate. You know what I mean? We'll do that. You know, the double-decker bus, we took the, can I say this? Yeah, we took the Church fireman, right, to Ascot, right, for the day, right? Mate, pulled up in the car park of Ascot. They all went off like that, right, out again. Now, we got the double-decker bus. We plotted it up in the corner, right? So when everyone come back from Ascot, we'd all have a drink down the coaches and all that. They flick the tunes on. We've got a DJ there. Next thing, there's like the whole car park is in front of the bus. I'm standing on the front of the bus, off my nut, the Motorola and the named top and all that, with a radio like that. And he's going, are we all right? Yeah, we're all right. We're trying to act official. We're all on another planet. The firemen, they're having a time.
I know exactly where you are in Ascot as well.
Yeah.
Right there in the car park, raving.
Yeah. And the Church fireman, years afterwards, if I walk in from Church, go, here he is. Like, you know, we're legendary. Right? Anyway, I'm on the radio. I'm off me nut. Right? Old Bill comes on a horseback. He went, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm telling you, this goes off at 8 o'clock and you leave, all right?
Yeah.
I went, all right.
No worries.
You know, so I was around these people that were doing this stuff and, you know, and it was fun. You know, there was a lot of fun. I could tell you these mad stories being in people's company and, you know, and all that.
So when didn't it become fun?
Yeah, well, look, this is what I was about to say. You was talking about you don't want to glorify it. Look, at the end of the day, if it wasn't fun and the times weren't good, we wouldn't have took it to the levels that we did, trying to get that stuff back. So exactly what Max just said. When did the consequences start kicking in and when did it start not becoming fun?
See, even with all this, right, it was fun, and these are all great stories, but in amongst those stories that was fun, what about the paranoia? What about the come downs? Yeah. What about this new line of thinking that I have that like was a little bit sort of judgmental, who's looking at me and, you know, don't go in the shop and buy a packet of Rizzlers because you feel a bit hungry. That was happening. At that time, I could walk through that stuff.
Funny enough you say that because it's not like a period of, oh, that's all good and that's all bad.
No,
it's up, down, up, down. Yeah, and the down, you want to get up. And when you're up, you know you're coming down. Very well put.
Yeah, I've cried many a time at a festival on day 3, 4.
Yeah, there you go.
But you sort of forget that, you know, because the good times is what you tell your mates and you're telling your people in the office or on the building site the next day.
And we forget, right?
And you miss out a bit where you were crying in the tent on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, continue, mate. Sorry to cut you off.
So it was always there that it was bad. When you're doing it to that levels, there's always these little, you know, like you say, the bits of the come down, you know, the behaviours off the wall. I could get into a few behavioural stories, you know, that just, I knew what I was doing. So even if I'd been in a blackout, my mates would happily tell me what I'd been up to, and it was never really good. So I knew. So it was like, so it would all sound and look good, but internally I was starting to carry this stuff. Yeah. It was like, oh, mate, I don't like this, I don't like that. So really, if I'm really honest, even going back to like the, you know, the drink, the disco sort of thing, there was the school disco thing. There was always bad bits.
Yeah,
there was always a bit in there that was like, oh, I feel like shit, or that weren't a great thing, or do you know what you've done, or you know, that sort of stuff. And that progressively got worse. Yeah, I mean, like I say, it was like that was 80s and 90s. We done a lot of, you know, I think mad stories. I went to a rave in the south of France. Me and my mate, we had about 40 quid each, and we got a train there. We was in South France, you know, we had an ounce of puff and nothing else. You know, walking up the Pyrenees Mountains.
What else you need?
You know. Well, that was mad. So two of us turned. This particular rave got the French mafia got involved with it and cancelled it. But everyone turned up. Me and my mate was the only two people. Like there was a 20-bed inflatable hospital. The Rat Pack were there. The stage. It was everything. Me and my mate turned up. And what we was going to do was sell a bit of puff when we get there and blag our way back. But there was no one there. So we sat there, smoked the puff with the Rat Pack, sitting on the side of the mountain, and like no one else there, right? And the geezer with the sound system, He said, "Where are you boys from?" He said, "Romford." He said, "I'm from Romford. I'll give you a lift home." So we had all this puff. I ended up getting them all wrecked, and I had to drive the car back because they was all too wrecked to get. So yeah, there's plenty of those, mad stories. But like I say, a lot of paranoia, and I think a lot of these stories are when we're younger. When I had mates that used in that period and they stopped after this.
Yeah.
Where they was, whoa, that was a mad one. Do you know what I mean? Non-addicts sort of thing.
Or was able to hold down a decent job in the week and party at the weekends.
Yeah, that's it.
Have a month off.
Yeah.
Have a month off and like buy a house and get a nice car and have a successful relationship. I would keep up at the weekends, and then my life was just a shit show in the week until the weekend.
Yeah.
And then it was acceptable. So yeah, it's just exactly what you're saying. Just them little moments of joy, and just like the negatives started getting more and more. The fun time started getting less and less. Is that your experience?
Yeah, there's always a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, right the way to the end, there was a yin and a yang, So it's good as it was, as bad as it was. And I don't know how or why, or, it weren't like I sort of went out to do certain drugs, but sort of like the party ended, in my late 20s. Really, that was when it was, it was sniffing, it was social, it was like doing these mad things with the fireman and all that sort of thing. And my daughter was born at that stage, and everyone thought, including me, I thought, right, this is it, mate. I'm sorted now. I'm going to sort my life out. And that's when, I stepped up the drug use.
Yeah, same.
And I turned, and I'll never forget, there's a couple of mates, and we come back from a nightclub all pilled up and that. And they were, one of the geezers there was at this fella's house, and a couple of my mates, a couple of people I didn't know. And he went, "Who can skin up?" And, this is claim to shame, you know what I mean? No matter what state, in a convertible car, anywhere you like, I can skin up. That was my claim to fame, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's fucking pathetic, really. But he said, "Can you roll this up for us?" So I was like, "What's this?" It was fucking heroin. And I'll tell you what, I can remember sitting there, I looked at my two mates and I was disgusted. I thought, "You fucking wrong-uns." I thought, "You wrong-uns." Like, I mean, and I rolled it up for them. Even though I thought I was wrong-uns, I still rolled it up. And they went rollers on us. I went, "I ain't smoking that shit." And two of my mates who did, obviously. And mad, a week later, I tried that drug. A week later, after going, "You wrong-uns," and I guess that was a turning point, right? It wasn't.
How old are you here, Dale?
About sort of about 28, 29. My daughter was born around this time, and I remember sort of like we were still at the back of sort of doing like pills, and then we had like to finish off with a brown. I remember sitting there saying, "Oh, I wish we had this years ago." It's just insane. And what I mean, it took a turning point. It's almost like the party ended, because when I moved into those sort of drugs, it all went dark. The lies had to be a bit deeper. You didn't tell certain mates you was doing that stuff, because it was frowned upon. It was like, "Well, what are you doing?" Like I had, "Oh, you wrong-uns." So it all went. A lot of mates disappeared. And I remember sort of like, doing a bit of that and feeling like I had some control or power over it, because I'd do a bit, leave it, do a bit, leave it, thinking, mate, I'm this. And I was thinking about this today. My mate said to me, "Dale, you keep doing this, right, it'll be okay." He said, the point that you get the telephone number and get a bit of gear on your own, you're bang in trouble. And I thought, nah. And I can remember now, I could cry now, because I can remember where I was sitting when I got the number, and I went out the streets of Ilford and I sat there on my own, and I got a bit of gear and I smoked that bit of gear, and I knew. I thought, I'm banging trouble here, but no, I didn't want to get out of it. That was, another 15 years was to go with that daily use, you know what I mean? And that's when, from that, I got introduced to crack. And the two went hand in hand, and that was my life for a long time. I cannot believe, and I sit here clean now, and I've looked at my story and I've gone, "Oh, I can't believe I did it." I'm not the guy. If you was to speak to certain mates from my past, right, they go, "Not Darren.
No.
He wouldn't be doing that, and that." I remember having an argument with a guy I used to have a bit of a sniff with.
Yeah.
I said to him, "I'm smackhead." He went, "Never." We had an argument. So I'm going, "I am." He's going, "No, you're not." "I am."
Trust me, mate, I am.
It's not, it's not me. It's just doesn't feel like me, you know, and all this sort of like mad behaviour weren't me. But the truth it was me because I was there and I was doing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, from that's when it got dark. Like, I had to lie. And, you know, the glory days of like bags of pills in clubs was well over. You know, I had a daughter at this stage.
I was going to say, what was going on at home at this stage?
I was just lying and trying to manage it. I'd always come from like quite a mad background. So, you know, the girl that I was with, daughter's mum, and still with now, she met me as a complete fucking lunatic.
Right. Okay.
Like, for example, I kissed her first of all, right? And then like we were sort of seeing each other. And then she went, "Where's he gone?" And I fucked off to south of France for 3 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just disappeared, you know. So she always knew that I was a bit of a lunatic.
Right.
So it wasn't like a huge shock.
No, not a big change.
No, I mean, well, actually, it's like that one. It's not a huge shock, but I could keep surprising her again and again and again. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Looking at my own life.
Levels to it, right?
My wife probably thought, she did think when we were getting married or when you have kids, the parties has to quieten down a bit. And that wasn't my story. And like your wife, Dale, she's probably thinking, oh, he's having a bit of fun in his 20s, isn't he a fun bit party boy? But things will improve. And like you, mate, when I had kids and when I got married, my using just took off and my mates were quieting down and being responsible fathers and husbands. And I wasn't. I wasn't programmed that way. I was like, why aren't we staying out for 2 days? It just wasn't. It didn't. My addict had me in. I talk about having it. My addict having me in chains. That even with 2 kids at home, it wanted me out and doing my own thing. It didn't want me into reality.
What I get looking back as well is the lies. The absolute. You know, I lived in lies for lies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You couldn't call me a liar. I was just consumed in a lie. That was
like
it.
Layers of it.
Yeah, it was just, you know, the truth. You said there, you know, if I was to ask like my partner now and go, was I a bit of a fun party boy? She would say, no, fucking nightmare from the beginning to the end.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
And probably 13.5 years in recovery, still a bit of a nightmare. No,
At times.
A lot's changed. But yeah, you know, it progressed and what happened was I was trying to manage and I was getting more life. Like I had the daughter. I was trying to take responsibility, like, because I don't know, it's a bit addict style-y. When she got pregnant, I thought, this is it. Right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to get a decent car, because I'd always drove about in shit. I used to buy and sell cars, so it's like I didn't really care. But I thought, I've got this daughter, so I need to get a house, right? Get the mortgage, get a decent car, right? And this is going to be it. It's going to be like we will have arrived, you know.
Happily ever after.
Yeah, and what happened for me is it all got 100 times worse. I did have the house. I still managed to keep it. I did have the car. The child turned up, and the lies had to go, you know, more and more underground. Yeah. And I was getting, I could sort of feel this. I was getting sicker and sicker. You know, I had really good jobs. I could always graft a bit, you know. I'd work for myself at times. I could pull in money, you know, and when I'm sort of using, you know, the habit sort of reached up. It's like £100 a day habit.
Right. Same.
But what I would be doing is like working for cash. So I work for anyone, cash, you pay me up front, you know what I mean? So I could keep rolling like that.
But internally rotting at the same time. Right?
Oh, mate, I was I'd say I was wiped out emotionally and spiritually at about 27.
Yeah.
And I didn't get clean till I was 40.
Wow.
You know, I'm resilient. I'll have a go.
Yeah, well, addicts are, aren't they?
Yeah, you know, and I just kept going and kept going. My sponsor used a phrase, and you know it because it's like a master plan. That was my problem, is I always had a master plan.
Yeah.
Because I'm creative. I'm like, right, okay, we can do this. You know, my house, I still own it, right? When I come into recovery, I remember juggling the mortgage money, right? Never having it, telling her, like, putting it on my missus to blag it off. When I come into recovery, she was sorting out one of the cupboards. She pulled out a big file. I said, what's that? She said, that's when I went to court over our mortgage. Oh, I didn't remember nothing about it, you know. But I could always juggle. I could always do something. I could always sell something. You know, my thing was, you know, it's like arrogance of the drug user. My mates are all using, they want to take their stuff down cash converters. So I'd give them a slightly better price, then sell their gear for more money and think I was like, I'm earning here. Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of mate I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
you know what you was talking about you using then? Still at home. just about holding the family together, just about £100 a day habit. That's exactly how I was using. And you spoke about the lies on top of lies. And just like, I was struggling to distinguish the truth from the false and what lie I told one person. And you know what? For me, that was the thing that really brought me to my knees. I couldn't lie anymore. I was so consumed with, what have I said to that person? What have I said to you? And I get like, it was just fucking like a web of lies my whole life. And it was exhausting. Did you find that?
Managing that way of life, I was never conscious of doing that. Right?
Yeah.
But the whole thing, when I look back now with hindsight, looking back, it is absolutely exhausting trying to one, live two lives. Because one, I'm trying to be this family guy.
Yeah.
The other one, I'm this like, you know, lunatic getting up to whatever I'm getting up to. You know, it's like trying to, you know, I always remember the stuff that crippled me. Trying, you know, I used to smoke a bit of gear on the foil, right? Back then for another way. But trying to unravel a bit of foil, right? And I don't know if anyone, I know there's people who would identify with this, right? Because if you was to, you know, wrap up your sandwiches, you just wrap up your sandwiches, wouldn't it? If you're unraveling a bit of foil when your missus is sitting downstairs, it sounds like someone's put it through a PA system.
Oh, mate, I know what you're talking about.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know, it's like
Yeah.
and there's many a time she come running up them stairs. What are you doing? Nothing. All black round my face, and you know, it's
Oh,
like
mate, I know exactly what you're talking about.
exhausting trying to live that life.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Was there a rock bottom?
I think I hit a rock bottom way before, like around 27. I remember, you know, I was trying to find a meaning of life. I don't know what this means, but like, I'd locked myself in my house, like where I was living. And that was another thing, you know, to the story. I lived in I got kicked out of my mum and dad's house, and I lived in a wooden shack in the middle of, like a bit of land. It was my mate. She said, "You go there, you look after."
Is it like an allotment?
Well, it was a bit bigger than that, you know what I mean? He said, and it was called Sunset, and like everyone knows it. There was parties that went on Sunset. I'd go, you know, we'd have a party Saturday night. I'd go work Monday, and there'd still be people there Tuesday, Monday night when I get home. You know what I mean? I've got one mate who's renowned for that. He'll always be there. You know, so I sort of like living in this. So it's always sort of like been madness. I forgot what you asked me now. Was it
Rock bottom.
Yeah. So living that life, you know, I'd been kicked out. I think, you know, I'd hit that rock bottom at that stage, you know, because I was living very, you know, very raw at that time. And that was what I was saying, yeah. So I locked myself in one weekend, and I thought, I've got to try and find the answers here to life, you know. And I had a load of booze, load of drugs. I didn't answer the door to no one. My mates ended up breaking in, and I thought I'd read the Bible. You know, I'd gone into some weird, and I believe that, you know, that was a rock bottom. I'm looking and searching for answers.
What is there?
I don't even know what the questions are, but I'm looking and searching for answers.
Yep.
It was like my spirit took over. It's a knowing, you're better than this, you're worth more than this. And I tried to search for it, but, you know, you're not going to find it. What I know now, I wasn't going to find it on my own. So I'd say that around that time when I was living in there, and that was my like 27, 26, I hit a rock bottom then.
Yeah, no.
You know, drugs have really done a number on me. You know, I took acid. Acid does not agree with this human being, but I still persisted. Yeah. You know, a lot of mad sort of thinking and that. So using the drugs after that point was trying to keep myself out of that rock bottom. It was to try and, you know, keep away from the pain of that.
Using to get to zero.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, so I think like my rock bottom was quite a lot of half of my using.
Yeah, okay.
You know, but, and I always say this, you know, I've had a couple of sponsees, they said, I can't get where you got to. At the end of it, I got nutted off. And I say to them, like, stop using that drug just for 5 days.
Yeah.
And let's see where you end up. Like, I can't do that. I'm addicted. I go, there you go then. Because that was my thing.
Yeah.
You know, so what I see was, and I see this a lot in the rooms, people use drugs to keep off of their rock bottom. They've already hit it, but you can maintain it.
You can like float just above it.
Yes,
just above it,
you know, you can do it. It's when you know, because for me, when I eventually stopped, the world didn't look like a pretty place.
No.
You know, I again, the type of person I am. I didn't see, if I say, yeah, you crackhead and smackhead, that's what I did. Ain't me.
No.
You know, and I could rattle that gear out. You know, there's a lot of people, I've got mates, you know, I've got one mate, he said, I've rattled once, I ain't doing it again ever. You know what I mean? You know, and I know there's a few people like that. I could do it and do it and do it and do it. Give me a few Valium, bit of methadone, I can rattle it out, no problem. So I could sort of get clean, but I couldn't stay stopped, because what happened when I got clean was the reality of my life.
Totally.
You know, it was like the right here, right now, and I always felt uncomfortable with my own skin anyway, plus the last 30 years, plus looking at the missus, plus looking at the daughter, plus looking at the bills, plus looking at where's your life going, plus looking at your parents. It was like absolute hell.
Without a program, it's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, too much. Give me something to calm this, please. Yeah. I completely agree. And look, so you've gone through this. You said you got clean at 40. What happened? When did you get clean? Did you go to treatment? What was the process?
Right. Well, the story towards the end, like I said, I always tried to rattle out a bit of gear, right? And I'd go here and I'd go there, and I could do it, right? There's a little bit of madness in that, because I'd sort of stop using heroin and crack and just drink like a fish and think I was clean. You know what I mean? And I'm doing well. Going into blackout and getting nicked. You know what I mean? It's not doing well, Darren, but that was as best as I could do. Anyway, I'd done another rattle, and we'd been away. I'd done another rattle, sort of, and we'd come back, and I thought, right, I've got to. This was my insanity. I thought I could stop using drugs and get on with normal life in about 2 or 3 days. Yeah, and it just not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. No. So that's what I did, and I thought, right, okay. So what I'm going to do now is, this is a master plan, as long as I don't do them 2 drugs. So I bought 100 Valium off the internet, which weren't, I don't know what they were, mental tablets, because they weren't Valium, you know what I mean? I was walking about with them for the last bit of my using, and trying to stay clean. This was me trying to stay clean, you know.
Insanity around that, it's just off the scale, isn't it?
And a mate of mine said, right, take me to Southend, and I've got to pick something up. So I went, yeah, all right, I'll take you to Southend. So I had no driving licence at the time, in the missus's car. I'm off me nut, and I took him to Southend. We went in this pub in Leigh-on-Sea. I can still vaguely remember it. And like, you know, every good addict, next thing he's buying sniff. You know, next thing I'm sniffing. I don't even, at this point, sniff was well gone. Too paranoid, too sort of in my head. It's like, I don't mind having a bit of up as long as I got a bit of down. I knew I didn't have down, but I did it anyway. Anyway, we had another mad mental night, and what happened is, I was driving and I was going in and out. You know, I'd had bags, hundreds of these tablets. I don't know what they were. They were meant to be Valium. I don't know what they were. Plus the sniff, plus the booze. I'm driving along. I ended up rolling the motor end to end. Wow. Southend seafront, that was. And my mate flew out. He didn't have his seatbelt. He flew out the window. And it's like what you were saying earlier, you know, when you get conscious of yourself and you could sort of see, like you said about the lying, you could see it in yourself. Well, what happened was, it flipped like that. I took my T-shirt off. I grabbed the keys. I wiped them down. Right, it just flipped it end to end. Literally, I threw the keys out. I got it and I bolted and I ran away. You know, and I got up the road. I got to a phone box. I reversed the charges. Spoke to my missus. Right, I'm all cut open. My mate, I don't know if he's dead. I don't know, whatever like that. And I walked back to the. I called her. She's like, obviously another one of them phone calls. And I've got back to my mate, the old bill there, everything's there. They've gone to me. This is, you know, tuning into myself. They've gone to me, what happened? I said, I just chased the driver up the road. I couldn't catch him. Right? They went, okay then. Right?
All Claret will love you.
Yeah.
Clearly been in the car.
Yeah. So they took my mate to hospital, right? And they took me to Southend, Nick. And I started with a story. I said, I weren't driving. I said, there was a geezer driving there. So he said, I said, all right, can you come in here and you've got to blow in the breathalyzer? So I thought, yeah, sweet. I'll blow in that breathalyzer. You put me in that fucking cell and you lock that door and you leave me there. I blew in the breathalyzer. He said, oh, hold on a minute. He said, I've just got to get a colleague to have a look. So I blew it. It was in the machine, like the big one. In the station. So I blew it again. He went, oh, I see, it's 2 reasons you blew 0. I went, what? He said, you've blown 0. He said, we're not charging you at this point, but we just need to take these records. And you know, I've always done it before, and they said, will you sign that? When, you know, when you blow whatever you blow, I'm going to fuck off. When he said you've done 0, I'm off me out. I remember going, I'll sign that, and I've still got it. I've got a copy, so I've never blown 0. You know what I mean?
Like a little autograph.
Yeah, I thought I'll keep that. So I've got back to the cell and I think, just leave me here. He come out, he went, "You're free to go." And the moment in that, right, that really when I saw myself, right, the real sort of pivoting moment is I've always seen myself, right, as the guy, and my mates would back me up and say this, I will have your back. I'm a loyal guy, you know, and I've stood up to people and things in places where I'm shitting myself, but I'll be there, you know what I mean? And what I saw in myself for the first time is I left my mate to die.
Yeah.
I left him to die. I didn't give a fuck. And I thought, this has got out of hand. It was like the only bit that I sort of see about me was I've got this loyalty. Like everyone I know would know I'd have their back. And I'd left him and I'd broke. I absolutely broke at that point. And I walked from Southend police station to the hospital. As I walked in the room, they said, the nurse was saying, "Oh, he nearly died last night, this, you know, my mate." And I was like, done. That was it then. I thought, I ain't doing it anymore. And it weren't like a rock bottom of like, I'm not doing this anymore, I need help. I'm going to kill myself. I'm done. I am out of here, you know. And I went very quiet. I went very sort of like, okay, my missus come, I, you know, face her again, do the whole thing. And we went, she took me home. My mate was still in hospital and I'm sitting there. She said, "Right, I've got to go out." She had to go to work. So she went to work and that was it. I got the rope. And I've had a few suicide attempts and I can honestly say, hand on heart, I was gone. I was going. There weren't no cry for help. I couldn't give a fuck about cry for help. I couldn't give a fuck about anyone else. I was going to kill myself because I couldn't walk another step on this planet knowing what I kept doing. You know, and that little bit of like, I'm Dow, I'm loyal Dow. If I'm your mate, you can depend on me. And I left my mate to die and that ruined me.
Wow.
And the grace of God, there's, you know, I talk about God, it's my understanding of God, you know, that I found through fellowship, you know. And my missus come home early from work, you know, and she said, "What are you doing?" You know, it was quite obvious what I was doing. And I broke down again. I said, "Don't stop me." You know, I tell you, go out, leave me to it. Not, "Oh, you found me, and it great." It was like, go, you know, leave me out. And obviously, she's again distraught. So it was like, what do you do? Take him to hospital.
Yeah.
You know, and she took me to hospital. And you know, I'm not sort of the intensity of the situation is when you walk in A&E. You can walk in A&E with your leg hanging off, right? They go, "Sit down, be with you in a minute." Right?
Yeah.
I walked in A&E. They saw me in there. And they put me in a separate room. Right, I don't know what was going on. These two women come in, and they started talking to me, and they tried to. What we do is we'll send the home team to you, so we'll have an appointment in 2 weeks. And I remember sitting there going, "said You do not understand."
No.
And I weren't irate. I weren't like, you know, I was just. I call it a bit of a silence of the lambs moment, where I was like, sort of really like, okay, that's fine if that's what you're going to do, but I'm telling you now, I am going to kill myself. It's a done deal. You can have all the appointments you want. And thank you very much for that. You know, and one woman. I think one of the women might have been one of us, and the other one weren't. You know, she was like, she'd educated herself. Because the educated one went running out of the room, right, quickly to get some. I didn't know to get some. And the other one, I think, was one of us. She just sat there with a bit of a knowing, "You'll be all right, love." You know, one of them. I thought, I remember one was freaked out and one wasn't, you know, and that was my understanding. She come back, she said, "We're section you under section, blah, 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 blah." And it's mad. As soon as I heard, I thought, "What are they doing?" And I realised what that was. And I was like, no. You know,
was that your first experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that stuff, Chris, like going to prison and that, and being stabbed and all that stuff, that don't happen to me. I don't like that story I tell you, the geezers plotting up the shoots. Like, hey, me, I don't live that life. But what it's turned out, I actually
do. You do live that life. That is you.
Yeah. So now, I mean, you know, I got sectioned in the nut house, and you know, I was in there for 4 weeks, and that was mad. You know, I had my last alcoholic drink in the nut house. You know, we managed to smuggle in a bottle of vodka. There was a couple.
So since then, you stay clean.
I've not. I'd manipulated a script in there.
Yeah.
So
of course,
I'd sort of manipulated that. So I was taking other medication that I've manipulated. But my last drink was in the nut house, you know, of which my last blackout for alcohol was in the nut house. Yeah. You know, not, and that I believe, you know, I always talk about waking up in the morning because the staff got out of the way. I'm a messy drunk. I'm not necessarily aggressive, but I will wind you up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
And I'm like, people would be like, "Go, just get a fucking way." I go, what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like one of them.
Yeah, I was very
playful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
fucking get away from me.
Yeah, you're driving me mad. An hour of it was all right, but fuck off now. You know what I mean? I'm one of them drunks, you know.
Yeah.
And the lads, the staff got out of the way. The lads put me to bed, and I remember coming to in the morning and thinking, "Fuck it now," you know. And I always say, you know, I pissed the bed. It's a plastic mattress, so you're sitting in a puddle of your own piss. I sweat my feet, and I believe that was a real shift. That was a real like, how have I, Darren, got here? What the fuck is going on?
Pissing myself in a plastic bed in a nut.
How has this got to this?
Yeah.
I had a similar experience my last user, not quite on the same level as that, Dal, but I'm with you with the how have I got here, because I went missing for 2 days, and my dad, who doesn't do feelings really, and he doesn't understand drugs, wasn't really, he's a big boozer, but he's not one of us at all. He was out looking for me and my younger brother, and they come and found me, and this look on his face was just confusion really, and worry. And I remember I went round my brother's house. My missus had booted me out at this point, and went round my older brother's house. Sort of, they left, and then I went upstairs and to just get my nut down really, I think. And I remember looking in the mirror and just crying my eyes out, and I had one of those moments. How the fuck have I got here? How's this happened to me? This started off fun, like you on the buses and the raves at Ascot. Fast forward the tape and you're here, and it's one of those moments I'll never ever forget. Like just looking at yourself in the mirror, something about that where you're having a proper conversation and a look at yourself. You're looking at your own eyes. Do you know what I mean? And it was a real moving experience. I think the next day I went into recovery, and I've not looked back from then. So very similar experience to that, matey. Talking about recovery, how did you find recovery and the fellowship that we're in? And because we want to get onto that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, from that point, you know, they sectioned me for like a month, and I had all these different tests, and you know, and they said, you're not this, you're not schizophrenic, you're not bipolar, you're not this and not that. And I went, that's really cool, but what am I?
Yeah.
And they had no answers for me.
Right.
You know, this is just my story through the system. You know, one guy, remember, my wife was there. He said, I could give you 30 sessions. He said, I might be able to push 60 sessions, but your suicidal tendencies worry me. And I remember sitting there thinking, they worry you.
Worry me as well.
Yeah, they're a bit concerning for me. You've locked me in this gaff for a month. You know what I mean? So, they ended up kicking me out of there because there was nothing they could do. Right. And I, at the time, I didn't like that. I thought, what do you mean? I've come here. This is where you helped me. But
they say time's a healer, though. At the end of your stay there, was it, had your mood changed at all, or?
Not really.
No.
I was still being as smart as ever because they gave me a script that I manipulated, and then they said to me, because you used to queue up every night to get your meds outside, and they said optional sleeping tablet.
Right.
Well, I remember thinking, optional? What do you mean? Optional drugs? Well, of course I want it. And then, you know, still that thinking, realising other people in the queue would all have an optional sleeping tablet, and there were some normies in there that probably didn't want it. So I said, get your sleeping tablet.
Get your sleeping tablet. I'll
then
have it.
I was like, you know,
that's where my head went straight away.
Yeah, put them in your mouth while you're there. So it's like under your tongue. Swallowed it, get out, and I'd keep them, stash up my next Valium from the next day, and then have a buzz. So I'm in that place, it's rock bottom.
Still use it.
And I'm still think I'm playing the game. And I was it was 2010. I had a pair of shorts on, a pair of Ray-Bans, right? I'm saving up my tablets, having them in the day, rocking about, thinking, I don't know what I thought I was, but I thought I was someone.
With your sunglasses on?
Yeah, a pair of Ray-Bans walking out sunbathing. I used to nick a pint of milk and a sheet and go and lay in the sun.
Yeah.
Thinking I'm on some sort of holiday. I was insane. You
know?
And anyway, I got kicked out of there. They said, there's nothing we can do. And I kicked off, a big fight in there. And I had to get off the premises and, you know, and all that. My missus come and got me. And at that point, you know, I was absolutely wiped out. My missus had phoned around a few treatment centres. There was a treatment centre in Southampton. They'd done an assessment with me over the phone. I was on the phone for about 4 minutes. They said, bring him down. We had no funding. We had no money. And I went down to a treatment centre in Southampton. I got in that treatment centre because I just, off the back of like 4 weeks in a nut house, I didn't want to be there. You know, there was all these happy, joyous and free faces.
Yeah.
You know, I understand it now. You know, I'm the newcomer. They're the peers. Make me feel welcome. No, mate, fuck off.
Yeah.
Just fuck off. You know, my missus took me down there. She sat and all had spaghetti bolognese around a big table in the treatment centre. I sat out the front smoking roll-ups thinking, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know, and I literally... this is my story. I stayed in treatment. There's lots to this story. I didn't stay in treatment full term, basically. A mate of mine had gone to treatment years before, and he'd got a book from a certain fellowship, right? And we used to look at this book while using. And I sort of had it in my head that this book, I don't know, I wouldn't have said this book's to do with recovery. I didn't know that, but I just remember this book. So I asked for a book, and this guy gave me a book from AA, right? And every other word was alcoholic. I thought, fucking cheek, who's this geezer think I am?
I felt exactly the same.
Fucking give it back to him like that. And I asked a book from Narcotics Anonymous, right? So I got the basic text, and I set about reading that, and it completely spun my head out of. Because if you start reading higher powers, and you're willing your life over, start reading the steps, it's like, what the fuck? And
it's a lot.
And that was my second introduction, because I'd been to a meeting years before where I took my two mates because they were really fucked. And so I got this basic text in there, and I can only call it a sort of like a divine intervention. It can only be that, right? Because I'd been to a couple of meetings when I was in there, and I'd read this book. I didn't really understand it, but I'd sort of worked out about this higher power. My wife was my higher power. She'd always looked at the good in me. I'd put this together, right? And I said to him after about, I'd been there about 5 days, I said, I've got to leave. They went, Darren, you can't leave. Because the reason you got a bed in this treatment centre is because the guy before you left used, and he's dead. Right. Do you hearing that? I went, yeah, I know, but I've got to leave. I said, I need to phone my missus. I said, I need to speak to her. He said, no, you can't use the phone. Higher power moment again. At that moment, I remember they had a fish tank room that was really tranquil, and I was sitting in there sort of saying, I've got to leave. They said, his wife's on the phone. She rung up. So
no way, brilliant. At the moment.
Yeah, so I got on the phone to her, and I said to her, look, I said, I'm a liar, I'm a cheat, and I'm a manipulator. Right? She went, well, I know that. Right? I said,
shot.
I said, but you've got to come and get me.
Right.
She went, what? I said, you've got to come and get me. I don't need to be here. She said, well, what do you mean you don't need to be here? I said, I don't need to be here. If you ask me now, why did you know you didn't need to be there? I have no idea. Right. I do not know what it was, but I'd read this book, and I'd been to a couple of meetings, and she did, because I'm a liar, cheat, and a manipulator. She come and got me, and against all of the treatment centre. And I will just say this, right, because this is my story. But if anyone's in treatment and you're thinking about doing what I did, one of my little regrets is I wish I'd have stayed in treatment and gone through that process. I wish I'd have sort of stayed there and see it out. Okay, I'm still clean, and I've got my recovery, so I'm happy with that. But just stay there, work it. It's it's worth it. You're going to get a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of support, and learn a lot. But anyway, she come and got me, and I remember, because I've read this basic text, it was almost like the head had shut up, and it was like the spirit took over, and I didn't really know. It was like I knew stuff that I didn't know. So we're driving back, and, don't forget, at this point, my wife's been with me for a lot of years. So we're driving back, and I've said to her, I know what's wrong. She's gone, what? I said, I've got a disease. She's gone, what? I said, I've got the disease of addiction. Wow. She's put her head in her hands and thought, what the fuck has he come up with now?
Yeah.
Because she don't know about
Didn't
recovery.
Know, yeah.
No. So we got back, and I'd heard things. The manager in there, he said, make sure you go to meetings. And I said, yes. I didn't really know whether I was going to or not. And, but again, it was like my spirit was sort of driving me. Yeah. It was like the head had gone. It was like, I knew there was an answer. It was something that was driving me for this answer. Certain fellowship talk about a white light experience. Maybe I had that experience, but there was something driving me, but I can't quite explain what it is, because I'm not intellectually clever enough to go, this is a 12-step fellowship. I must attend these meetings for my well, but I'm not that kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? But there was a knowing, and I came back to Essex after being, it's like 5 weeks, 4 in the nut house, 1 in the treatment centre. And I went to my first meeting in Chelmsford on a Sunday night, and there was some guys in there, and I remember the guy doing the share, and he shared about he said, I'm 18 months clean off of street drug and prescribed drugs. Wow. And he said, I'm abstinent. And it was the first time I'd ever heard abstinence. Yeah. And it was the first time I had a realisation in that meeting. I was sitting there and I picked up a white key ring because they took us to meetings, and I knew I hadn't used heroin for ages now, you know what I mean? So I was clean. And I realised in that moment, I thought I manipulated a script.
Prescription drugs count.
Yeah, for me they did, because the way that I'd got it, and it was a complete manipulation. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. Not saying all prescription.
Yeah, if you're doing them for the right reasons.
If you're prescribed by a doctor and you're not abusing them, that's okay.
Absolutely.
But like you said, manipulating it. If it says take one and you take two, that's using.
I'd manipulate. And the mad thing about this, I always think back and laugh, right, is I was in bits. If you ask people who saw me in them first meetings, I mean, my sponsor now, he saw me in them first meetings, he said, Darren, you were someone who couldn't even stand in your own space. You know, and I think that's a really good example of it. And the thing I always laugh at with that is, I was still medicated.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was about to come, because I went to my doctor. I'd done an amazing thing with a doctor. I got honest, which was like, that was an amazing thing. Do you know what I mean? And we done a rapid detox, and I walked into that meeting again on that Sunday, the following Sunday, and that was the 1st of August 2010. And I picked up the white key ring. Oh, I feel emotional for that. And that was. I'd had days where I'd rattled out before. I'd had days where I didn't pick up, just through things like that. But what that was my first day clean in recovery.
Yeah, amazing.
You know what I mean? I'd stepped into a completely new world. Yeah. You know, I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know where it was going to take me. I didn't even know what it looked like. I didn't understand any of it. You know what I mean? But it was just, I'm part of this now. You know what I mean? I'd achieved total abstinence, you know what I mean? And I picked up that white key ring. And if I'm really honest, and I think it's important to be, the world looked like a hostile place. Yeah. I went to meetings. I was scared of people in meetings. I got a good poker face. I know that because I've been blagging for a long time. Yeah. I was anxious. Didn't even know what anxiety was. Someone said, you're anxious. I went, me? What do you mean? And you see me on them speakers a few years back, mate. You know what I mean?
You know how, Scott?
Yeah. You know, I was terrified. I was terrified. I remember being in treatment, and they took us to a meeting in treatment just for them, like 6 days I was there. We was walking down the side of a road, because you had to walk there. I remember standing there, like clean, like looking at the cars whizzing past and the traffic lights. I was thinking, I'm overwhelmed here. What's going on?
It's a bit fast and loud.
Yeah. And I was thinking, don't tell no one you're overwhelmed because cars, you know what I mean? Yeah. So when I got clean, it was a scary place. You know, I had feelings on top of feelings. I don't know if some were real, they weren't real. I had the shame, the guilt, the reality of my life, the mess I'd made. You know, within the first few months, I had 2 eviction notices on my house. You know, I'd managed to keep it for active addiction. I got clean and I got 2 eviction notices. You know, and that's when I really lent into recovery. You know, I said to my sponsor, I'll come to the meetings. The guy in that first meeting, I said to him in there, I said, what have I got to do? They said, keep coming back. I thought, that's a bit thin. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Give me some direction, please.
More.
Yeah, a bit more. You obviously don't know the size of my problems, do you? Keep coming back is far not enough. You know what I mean? And I remember saying to him, I said, how long have you kept coming back for? He went, I'm 20 years clean. Yeah. I thought, you kept coming back 20 years? And they said, do 90 meetings in 90 days. So my missus used to take me. I'd done 90 meetings in 90 days. My missus in the car park outside.
Oh, brilliant.
You know, she sat and she took me. That's up to Southend. That's up to Chelmsford. You know, and sat in that car. My daughter used to go with her when she was younger, you know, and sit outside.
What an absolute saint, your missus.
Yeah,
big medal deserved.
Mate.
Yeah, it's like that thing, isn't it? It's God present in your life. Whatever you see God as. Oh, mate, it's surrounded me. It's kept me alive.
God.
It's kept me breathing.
She's God, mate.
That power has kept me breathing. I wouldn't be here without her, you know. I'll tell you one embarrassing thing with that. Because I'm full of it, and I'm trying to be the big man. I'm dying. Everyone in recovery can see right through me, all of that stuff, you know. I get her to park in the car park so people couldn't really see her. Do you know what I mean? Not I'm embarrassed to her. I'm just ashamed that I'm being taken to meetings. And my sponsor, see her once, said, do you want a cup of tea? I bought her out a cup of tea from the meeting. Oh, I'm dying. I was dying. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You know, because I didn't want the spotlight on me. You know? I didn't want it on me.
So since then, you stay clean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's 13 and a half years, right?
Yeah, that guy who was in there for 20 years clean, he ended up, I said to him, you sponsor me.
Yeah. Is he still your sponsor? Is he
No, he
No,
passed away, unfortunately. Yeah. But in that first, he sponsored me for the first 5 years of recovery, and
Right.
and what I got to, it was a very easy black and white decision to make for me. You know, it's like some people come in and they sort of think, well, there's a few options still on the table. Do you know what I mean? For me, it was very, very black and white.
No, I had that gift of desperation as well. We share about it all the time, Chris,
Yeah.
don't we? I had no doubt I was meant to be in there, and I was just ready to take on, help me. It was a help me moment for me. And
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't saying, well, why am I doing that? It was like, okay, that's the experience I had.
Yes, same with me. How I kept it black and white, it was either kill yourself or recover.
Yeah.
Recover. There was no, oh, well, maybe I might be able to just...
No wiggle room.
There was no. So it was like, right, you know, and I said do 90 metres in 90 days, which I thought was a bit of a cheek.
Come on, it's a lot, isn't
That's
it?
3 months, I thought. What are you talking about, you know?
Disguise it by the 90 meetings in 90 days, the 3 months.
Yeah, but think about it, right? What's 90 days when you got 13 and a half years?
I'm not...
It's nothing.
I'm not doing anything in my life anyway. I've just been in a nut house, and I'm saying...
Exactly.
You know,
I'm a bit busy for that, man.
You know,
Come
here's the
on.
insanity, because what you're doing on this sort of podcast is trying to like show people about addiction and all that sort of thing. So my wife has lived through hell, right? So we're sitting there, and she's picked me up from the jails, institutions, near death, all of that stuff, right? So I come out. She said, what they say? I said, they said, do 90 meetings in 90 days. I went, that's 3 months. She went, I reckon if you do that, you'll be all right.
Bless her.
You know, really trying to hang on to that hope that, you know, addiction's not this big thing, this sort of like thing
takes
that's
a whole
killing
life.
people. It's just like a little drug problem. Stop doing it for a little while, see the light, and you all live happily ever after.
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's what everyone believes. It's what I believe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you managed to, has your missus got an understanding about what goes on?
Oh, she has now, yeah.
Same. So my missus is normal as well, and so is Max's, and it takes a lot. There's no addiction in my family. It took a lot to explain. People are like, what, you still go? You still got to go to the meetings? I'm like, yeah, I've got to go. Because the biggest one for me is, who's going to be there for the newcomer? If everyone gets what they want and goes, then there's no fellowship.
Absolutely.
What about if my son or my grandkids need a meeting and there's no fellowship left because everyone got what they wanted and left, right? That's a big part of why I will always keep coming back. You know what I mean? And like that guy with 20 years, and like yourself with like over a decade, it's one of the great joys in my life is being a part of something and giving back to it. So yeah, I'm going to keep coming back. We've actually gone way over what we normally do, right? But it was such a great episode, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I had to let it run on a little bit.
Yeah.
Just brilliant, mate. Just brilliant. Some great experiences about, you know what I mean, the early days and just reaching that point of rock bottom, and then finally the solution, and you know what I mean.
Can we finish on 2 minutes of what your life is like now?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I said, so from that days of getting that sponsor and doing them meetings, I've just continued that for the whole. I've tried to adjust it at times, do a bit less, do a bit more, you know, so now, you know, I've got a pattern, I've accepted it, that this is the way it is. And the biggest reason of that is that I'm someone who really suffers as like self-sabotage, you know, I have a negative way of thinking, you know, the illness is still up and running in me, and it's just the way it is. Being in recovery, you know, and being able to be of service to other people gives me a real sense of worth.
Yeah,
you know,
same.
I can work, I can earn money, I can get material stuff. Don't really give me a sense of worth. It really does. You know, and with that sense of worth, I've been in all sorts of places. Like I said, I've visited South Africa, like I think about 8 times, you know.
Beautiful, isn't it?
You know,
I've got family over there. It's lovely.
yeah, sort of involved in treatment centres. I go over there, it's a bit like a busman's holiday, and I rock up. You know, I've gone into prisons over there. And the greatest message is, you know, when you go to a prison, you go over there, it's like, well, I'm an English guy from London who's on holiday, he just took time out to talk to you, right? They all sit there scratching their head going, either he's nuts or there's something in this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And my life today, I struggle, it's up and it's down, but, you know, my wife smiles. Our relationship is the best it's ever been. That's 30 odd years of being together, and I put her through hell. You know, I can honestly say I'm really good at relationships now. You know, I've learned that in recovery. I can turn up, I can be responsible. I don't run away from too much, you know. There's as much success in my life fear still creeps in. There's as much success in my life as I want, you know. I pay the bills. You know, one of the greatest things, I've not sat in that court promising myself that I'm never going to be here again since being in recovery. You know, I've not been nicked, I'll say yet, in recovery. You know what I mean? It's all that stuff. See, that stuff, when people say, you know, life beyond your wildest dreams, my whole life I ended up getting nicked along the way. And I wanted to find a way to not do it, and I would have given anything for it. So a life beyond my wildest dreams is being able to not do that stuff. You know, my life's really is fantastic.
Yeah, nice.
You know, it is absolutely. I've been given so many gifts, so many blessings, so many wonderful people that, of course, I'm going to keep coming back, and of course, I want to give it away. So I'm like you guys. I like when I heard, you know, a couple of years, but it's got to be a passion. This, if it ain't a passion,
no.
Give it up. You know what I mean? It's got to be a passion. And if you get that flame lit inside yourself, and if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, then it becomes a passion, you know. And see, to light that flame in someone else, that's all. That's a life beyond my wildest dreams.
Love that.
Great stuff. Thanks again for coming on. I hope we can get you back on again at some point. I know you've done a lot of work with H&I. It's one of the best commitments I've ever had. You mentioned it briefly there about talking in the prisons. Maybe in future we could do an episode on H&I. Can we get you to agree to that?
Yeah.
You said it live on there now, though. We'll see you again. Thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
Cheers. Peace.
Thanks, guys.